King Solomon, renowned for his wisdom, wealth, and power, embarked on his reign with divine favor.
He was the richest, wisest, and most powerful king, blessed by God himself. But in the end, Solomon lost everything. How did a man who had everything, amazing intelligence, immense wealth, and a powerful kingdom, end up in misery and regret? God had blessed him with amazing wisdom, great wealth, and immense power. But what happened to this great king? How did a king who was so blessed by God become sad, remorseful, and spiritually weak at the end of his life? Let us know the untold story of the last days of King Solomon. It was a day when he thought about his wonderful life, his mistakes, and the terrible consequences of turning away from God. The answer to this will surprise you. Let us know the whole story of the last, sad days of the wisest king in history. King Solomon was considered the wisest man in the world. Solomon asked for something that became the hallmark of his life. God also promised him wealth, respect, and long life. But he placed a condition. If Solomon had followed God's commandments, he would have received all these blessings. He did not ask for wealth, long life, or the defeat of his enemies. Instead, he humbly prayed, as recorded in 1 Kings 3-9, "O God, give me an understanding mind so that I can judge your people correctly and differentiate between good and evil." Because who can rule such a large population? This is the king who had everything. Why did he start saying that it's all in vain? And what does his story teach us today? Stay with us till the end of the video so you can see the powerful lessons from the life of King Solomon that can change our lives even today. What can we learn from Solomon's mistakes? How can we avoid the wrong paths that caused him to turn away from God? This story is not just about a king. This is the story of all of us who struggle with pride, greed, and the desires of the world. Hit the like button if you find this story inspiring and eye-opening. Subscribe to our channel and press the notification bell so you don't miss any new videos. And try to understand how he rose, how he fell, and how the wisest king of Israel ultimately reached such a tragic state. This story is so powerful that it can change the way you think. Don't miss this at all. Let's get started. Your support helps us bring you more powerful Bible stories and life-changing lessons. So let us delve into the last chapter of King Solomon's life. From the very beginning, Solomon's life was blessed and guided by God's grace. The ascent to glory, a kingdom blessed by God. The reign of King Solomon began with great hope. He was the son of David and Bathsheba, chosen by God to sit on the throne of Israel. In 1 Kings 3-5, it is written that God appeared to Solomon in a dream at Gibeon and said, "Ask me for whatever you want." God liked this request of Solomon very much. It is written in 1 Kings chapter 3 verses 10-14 that God gave him wonderful knowledge. Solomon's wisdom was soon put to the test. 2 women appeared before him, both claiming the same child to be their son. This incident is written in 1 Kings chapter 3 verses 16-28. In this, Solomon showed the wisdom he received from God. He said, "Cut the child into 2 parts and give it to both of them." The real mother loved her son's life, so she said, "Don't harm the child. Give it to the other woman." Hearing this, Solomon understood that she was his real mother. 1 Kings chapter 8 verses 22-53 states that he acknowledged the greatness of God and asked him to listen to the prayers of his people. The gist of his prayer is given in 1 Kings chapter 8 verse 23. "O Lord God of Israel, there is no God like you in heaven or on earth, who keeps a covenant of love with his servants and those who walk faithfully in your ways." The people of Israel were astonished at this decision and realized that the wisdom of God was with Solomon. There was peace and prosperity during his reign. Israel's prosperity was so great that merchants, scholars, and kings came to visit it from far and wide. Due to this, he started getting precious things like gold, silver, elephant teeth, monkeys, and peacocks from different countries. 1 Kings 10:22 states that his ships returned every 3 years laden with treasures, which shows how far his power and business extended. In 1 Kings 10:14, it is written that Solomon used to receive 666 talents of gold every year, approximately 25 tons. 1 Kings chapter 10 verses 23 to 24 says that King Solomon was greater than all the kings of the earth in wealth and wisdom. People from all over the world flocked to Solomon to hear the wisdom that God placed in his heart. After this, the discussion about Solomon's wisdom spread far and wide. It is written in 1 Kings chapter 4 verses 29 to 30 that God gave Solomon great knowledge, understanding. She traveled from a long distance and asked Solomon difficult questions. 1 Kings chapter 10 verses 6 to 7. This was exactly what his father David wanted to do, but could not complete. According to 1 Kings 6, Solomon's temple was a marvelous construction of that time. It was made from the best materials. It took 7 years to build, using cedar wood from Lebanon, gold, silver, and brass, and it became the spiritual center of Israel, where the presence of God dwelt among the people. Records are words. I heard about your wisdom and your deeds in my country, but I did not believe in these things until I came and saw it with my own eyes. The truth is that it wasn't even half of what I had heard. You have achieved more in wisdom and wealth than all the stories I have heard. This incident shows that God's blessing was not just for Solomon, but for all of Israel, and wisdom as much as the sand on the seashore. Solomon's wisdom was greater than that of all the people of the East and all the wise men of Egypt. Solomon wrote 3,000 proverbs and over 1,000 songs. These teachings covered life, nature, leadership, and faith. Solomon's wisdom became so famous that even the Queen of Sheba came to test him. But Solomon's greatest achievement was building the temple in Jerusalem. When the temple was completed, Solomon led the entire nation in a powerful prayer. Under Solomon's reign, Israel became very wealthy, powerful, and famous. Solomon had immense wealth. He took control of the trade routes from Egypt to Mesopotamia. Solomon's throne was very unique. According to 1 Kings chapter 10 verses 18 to 20, it was made of ivory and trimmed with pure gold. It had 6 steps, and a total of 12 lions were carved on both sides of each staircase. This was a symbol of his immense power. There was no throne like this in any other kingdom. Not only the palace, but the entire kingdom of Solomon was full of luxury and comfort. God had already said that the king should not have many wives, or else his mind would be distracted. As Solomon grew older, his foreign wives began to have a profound effect on him. God clearly told the Israelites in Deuteronomy chapter 12, verses 2 through 3, to destroy the places of worship of other gods and not build new ones. But Solomon did the opposite and disobeyed God. The saddest part of Solomon's story was that the wisdom he had prayed for to distinguish between good and evil was now suppressed by his wrong decisions. He got trapped in idol worship, whereas God had warned Israel to avoid this since the time of Moses. The Bible says in 1 Kings 11:4, when Solomon grew old, his wives turned his heart towards other gods. Do not marry your daughters to their sons, and do not take their daughters for your sons, because they will take your children away from me and make them worship other gods. But despite such a clear warning, Solomon's heart was misled. His love for God weakened, whereas his father David always maintained his devotion to God despite his mistakes. He did not remain wholeheartedly loyal to his God, Jehovah, like his father David. 1 Kings 10:21 records. All of King Solomon's cups were made of gold, and all the items used in the Lebanon forest palace were also made of pure gold. This mistake of Solomon was seen in the way that he built altars on high places, where people offered sacrifices and worshipped other gods. He also built altars for a goddess named Ashtoreth. This goddess belonged to the people of Sidon and was considered the goddess of fertility and luxury. This was totally against the teachings of the holy God of Israel. Solomon also built altars on high places for Chemosh, the god of Moab, and for Moloch, the god of Ammon. The worship of Moloch involved child sacrifice, which was very offensive to God. Silver had no value, because in Solomon's time, silver was considered a trivial commodity. This shows how rich and magnificent Solomon's kingdom was. Even precious metals like silver were considered common there. The seeds of downfall, temptation, and disobedience. But with so much wealth came temptations. As Solomon's power and influence grew, he entered into agreements with surrounding countries. These agreements were usually made through marriage. In the Bible, 1 Kings chapter 11 verses 1 to 2 records, Solomon married many foreign women, like Moabites, Ammonites, Sidonians, and Hittites. These were the people God warned the Israelites not to marry, because they could lead them astray to worship other gods. But Solomon did not take this warning seriously. He kept 700 wives and 300 concubines. These marriages were not just for the sake of friendship, but were a direct violation of God's law. God had given Solomon great wisdom, but he became so fond of his wives that he diminished his devotion to the God of Israel. Solomon did not do all this just to adopt the culture of others, but it was a direct violation of God's commands. In Deuteronomy chapter 7 verses 3 to 4, God clearly said, "Do not marry those people." God was angry with Solomon, and he didn't hide it. God had appeared to Solomon twice, the first time in Gibeon and the second time in Jerusalem. The man who had everything wisdom, wealth, and God's grace got caught up in the words of others and the clamor of foreign gods. God did not take away the kingdom during Solomon's lifetime for the sake of his father David. But when Solomon's son Rehoboam became king, the punishment was fulfilled. This was the result of Solomon's blatant infidelity. Solomon's life was full of great achievements, such intelligence that astonished nations, immense wealth, and a powerful kingdom that reached its height under his rule. In Ecclesiastes chapter 1 verse 2, Solomon sadly says, "Everything is vain." The preacher says, "Everything is vain." He remembered the day when he had dedicated the temple to God, a magnificent and sacred place built to honor Jehovah. He prayed with all devotion that God's blessings continue to rest on this temple. Then the glory of God came upon the temple like a cloud, showing that God was pleased with Solomon's work. But now Solomon's heart had gone far away from those devotional days. These words show the emptiness in Solomon's heart when he looked back at his life. He had gained a lot of wisdom, but he had forgotten the God who had given him everything. But his last moments were not filled with joy. Instead, he was filled with regret and the consequences of his disobedience to God for the mistakes in his life. God had chosen him, but his heart had gone far away from God. In 1 Kings chapter 11 verses 30 to 31, we see a powerful event. The prophet Ahijah met Jeroboam, an official of Solomon, outside Jerusalem. Ahijah took his new sheet, tore it into 12 pieces, and told Jeroboam to take 10 of these pieces for himself, because the Lord, the God of Israel, says, "Look, I will take the kingdom from Solomon and give you 10 tribes." He gave up his true devotion to God just to please their wives and their gods. The God who had blessed Solomon so much now punished Solomon severely. Jehovah said, "Because you did this and did not obey my words and commands, I will take away this kingdom from you and give it to one of your servants." This prophecy was the beginning of the end of the unity of Israel. The magnificent kingdom that Solomon had built by the grace of God was now heading towards disintegration, quarrels, and conflict. He asked Solomon to keep his word and remain faithful. In 1 Kings chapter 9 verses 6 to 7, God said that if you or your children turn away from me and do not obey my commands and start worshiping other gods, then I will drive Israel out of the land that I have given them. But despite these warnings, Solomon's heart became hard. He continued to build altars and practice idol worship. 1 Kings chapter 11 verses 9 to 10 tells how God responded. Jehovah was very angry with Solomon because Solomon's heart had turned away from the God of Israel, who had appeared to him twice. God had clearly forbidden him to worship other gods. But Solomon did not obey God. Solomon's departure from God is a lesson for us. God's judgment was strict and clear, but there was compassion in him too. The regrets of a king. The bitter-end King Solomon, once the wisest and richest man in the world, on the last day of his life, sat in his palace, remembering the days of his glorious kingship. These thoughts of Solomon are found in the book called Ecclesiastes, which is considered to be his work of old age. Sitting in his palace, Solomon's mind went into memories of old times. In Ecclesiastes chapter 2 verses 10 to 11, Solomon reflects upon his life and says, "I did not restrain my eyes from seeking what pleased me. I didn't hold back any joy from my heart. I enjoyed my hard work, and this was the reward for my hard work. But when I looked back at all my work and thought about what I had achieved, it all seemed in vain." He built the temple, which was a symbol that God is among his people. Over time, however, his foreign marriages, political compromises, and idolatry caused him to drift away from Jehovah. The bottom line is to fear God and obey his commandments, because this is the duty of every human being. These words he wrote at the end of his life teach that true happiness and peace are found only in obeying God. Solomon had left his first love to the God of his childhood, who had appeared to him in dreams and given him amazing wisdom. Like trying to catch the wind, there was no true benefit to anything under the sun. Solomon had great wealth, which allowed him to enjoy every kind of pleasure. He built huge palaces, planted vineyards, accumulated many treasures, and even imported strange animals from faraway places. One who is hungry for wealth is never happy with his earnings. This is also useless. Solomon realized too late that his desires had led him away from God's path. In Proverbs chapter 3 verse 6, he had earlier given this advice: "Trust in the Lord with all your heart, and do not lean on your own understanding. Acknowledge him in all you do, and he will make your path straight." But Solomon himself could not follow his own advice. He pursued the pleasures of the world, relied on his own understanding, and strayed from God's true path. He had hundreds of servants and musicians to keep him happy. But in his old age, he started to find all this useless. He tried to acquire everything in the world, but meanwhile, he strayed from his true path. Now he realized that all his achievements were nothing without God. In Ecclesiastes chapter 5 verse 10, Solomon talks about the vain race for riches. The one who loves money is never satisfied. When Solomon was young, he had a deep relationship with God. Solomon's writings show that he experienced both high and low moments in life. In Ecclesiastes chapter 12 verse 13, Solomon gives one final advice from his life experience. Now everything has been heard. Solomon's last days are a reminder that the things of this world don't last long. He had been given great blessings by God, but he wasted them by turning away from God. As he faced his final moments, he realized that his wisdom, wealth, and power meant nothing if his heart was not true to God. In Ecclesiastes chapter 7 verse 29, Solomon states a profound truth. "This is just what I found. God made man upright, but he found many clever ways." Despite being the wisest man of his time, Solomon was trapped in mistakes of his own making. His last words are a warning to all those who try to find happiness in the things of the world rather than in God. The story of Solomon teaches us that we must always stay true to God. His last day was not one of happiness, but of regret and thoughts. He started his life very well, but his last years were filled with misery and mistakes. The wisest king in the world had learned the bitter truth that no amount of wealth, wisdom, or pleasure can exceed a true heart for God. We must remember Solomon's last words and understand that our real goal is not to pursue worldly things, but to honor God and obey His commandments. Solomon's story reminds us that real wealth is not what we create for ourselves. Remember, true wisdom is when we follow God with all our heart, mind, and soul. Rather, it is what we have in our relationship with our God. King Solomon's last days were not filled with the joy of victory, but with the sorrow of having fallen away from God. We should learn from his mistakes. It's not how you start, but how you finish. Let us all try to remain true to God until the end of our lives. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe, and share it with others.